So, heart attack. What is heart attack and how we can diagnose it? So, generally, what people know is heart attack is chest pain, but it is not like that. There are specific symptoms which are suggestive of a heart disease, and some are parallel symptoms which also suggest heart disease, and they are different and difficult to diagnose. So, as we all know, chest pain, that is pain in the center of the chest, most commonly which is squeezing, heaviness, and spreading to both the arms and oblique or to the jaws, is classical of a heart attack, and which is seen in more than 50% of the heart attacks. But in addition to this, we must understand that other symptoms of chest pain, which are called as angina equivalent, are also important to recognize and diagnose the heart attack. So, what are these symptoms? So, any pain originating from your jaw up to the umbilicus can be a heart attack. So, it can be jaw pain, it can be throat pain or throat discomfort, burning in chest, burning in the throat, or only backache which is increased by exertion can also be a symptom of heart attack. In addition to that, other symptoms, supportive symptoms such as sweating, giddiness, fainting, dizziness, or any palpitation can also be additional symptom which can be considered in acute coronary syndrome, that is heart attack. So, a heart attack is a medical emergency. So, when a patient having high suspicion of heart attack by symptoms, that is what we discussed, is having a symptom suggestive of that, when patient reports to our emergency room, we conduct few tests. So I will name the few tests. First test we do is ECG. So in ECG, electrodes are connected to the patient's chest, both arms and legs, and then ECG is recorded and printed on a paper. So what we see in ECG is ischemia. So when blood supply to the heart is impaired, we see specific changes in the ECG such as ST elevation MI, non-ST elevation MI. Depending on that, the further treatment is decided. In addition to that, rhythm of the heart, heart rate, and any other disorders related to heart are also diagnosed in ECG. And ECG is a simple test which can be done in most parts of the country, anywhere. So ECG is the first and most important test to be done for heart attack. But I will also like to discuss that first ECG can be normal in ongoing heart attack if we do it on just at the onset of the symptoms. So repeat ECG after 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours can be done and should be done to make sure that patient is having heart attack or not, if the first ECG is normal. Then coming to next test is the echocardiography. So what is echocardiography? In simple language, echocardiography is the sonography of the heart. So what we see is the contraction of the heart in various views. So if a blood supply to the heart gets impaired in specific region, so we divide the regions into anterior, posterior, lateral and inferior. So wherever the blood supply is impaired, at that area we see that the muscle of the heart is contracting at slow speed than compared to other areas. In addition to that, what echo can diagnose is pre-existing diseases such as a hole in heart. Then we can also diagnose the pumping function of the heart. Then we see the valves, that is in between the chambers we have valves. So whether the condition of the valve is normal. Then last thing we see in echo is the pericardial effusion, that is there any fluid collection around the heart. So echo is a test which is conducted next to the ECG. Now what limitations are there in echocardiography? Echocardiography requires a trained doctor, that is a cardiologist, to perform a test. And what are the side effects? Is echocardiography is completely safe as it is ultrasound based test. It is similar to what you do for abdomen, ultrasound of the abdomen. So coming to next test is a coronary angiography. So coronary angiography is a test where, and it is a gold standard test to see the blockages of the heart. So So what we do in coronary angiography is we take a needle and make a prick, that is we access the artery and go up to the heart, and in the coronary artery we inject a special medicine that is called contrast, that is dye, and we record the images of the coronary arteries in various projections under the X-ray. So this coronary angiography graphy itself is a test which helps us to diagnose how many blockages are there, where are they placed, and whether there is any calcium involved in it, and what treatment we should do for this ongoing heart attack. But at the same time, I like to tell you that coronary angiography is an invasive test, so it carries 1 in 1 lakh risk of some adverse events such as hypotension or a sudden cardiac arrest. So coronary angiography is advised to the patient by a doctor considering the previous ECG, echocardiography and symptoms. And coming to the other investigations, like in all diseases we do blood test, here also we do blood tests such as hemogram, creatinine, blood sugar levels, and in addition to that we do troponin and CKMB test. So what are these tests? Troponin is a cardiac muscle protein. So when a cardiac muscle gets damaged, as we discussed before, when blood supply to muscle gets damaged, then this small protein gets seeps into the blood. So this troponin levels in the blood increase beyond a certain point, then we diagnose it as a heart attack. So ECG, echocardiography, angiography and blood test. So this combination of all these tests makes us helps us to make correct diagnosis of heart attack and suggest the patient better treatment for this ongoing heart attack. So what are the treatments for this heart attack? So first medicine which we give is antiplatelet, so that is aspirin or ticagrelor or prasugrel, which helps to make blood thinner, so hence it is called antiplatelet agent. Second drug we give is anticoagulant, which is another type of blood thinner, which is either heparin or Clexane, that is low molecular weight heparin. Third drug what we give is for pain, that is angina, relief of angina, that is nitrate or morphine. Third we give is a beta blocker, and fourth is a diuretic to relieve the breathlessness. So all these supportive drugs are given in all the patients of heart attack. Then comes to a definitive treatment of thrombolysis. So a thrombolytic is an agent such as streptokinase or tenecteplase, which helps the body to dissolve the blood clot which is existing inside the blood vessel. So thrombolytic therapy is a method of choice in a situation where cath lab, that is angiography or angioplasty facilities are not available. Then thrombolytics are first choice of therapy, and in emergency, without wasting time, these thrombolytics should be given to all the eligible patients to reduce the damage to the heart. So whatever heart damage we had discussed previously due to blockage of the artery can be reduced or prevented on after timely giving the Elexim, after giving streptokinase or tenecteplase. So till now what we discussed is the treatment of heart attack. But how to prevent this heart attack? To know this, we should know the risk factors which are involved and which are essential to avoid the heart attack, chances of heart attack. So first, what we all know and what we always hear is about cholesterol. So today's hot topic everywhere for the dietitians is cholesterol. So what is cholesterol? What is bad cholesterol? What is good cholesterol? So if we see a report, LDL cholesterol, that is low density cholesterol, is a bad cholesterol, and HDL is a good cholesterol. So the level of LDL, that is low density cholesterol, should be as low as possible and HDL should be higher. So how we have to achieve this? So first thing is the diet. So in diet we should avoid the saturated fats. So we should avoid the deeply fried items dairy products, cheese, and all the stuff which is related to that. And what we have to increase in diet is the amount of nuts, then olive oil, then a plain low vegetable oil in less quantity. We have to prefer those things. And third thing is the intake of fiber. So as we increase the intake of fiber, the levels of cholesterol tend to decrease. So we should eat the raw vegetables, fruits as much as in our diet in routine practice. Coming to the intake of water. So adequate intake of water is essential to maintain the regulation of all body functions. So we have to remember that water should be plain, and we should avoid drinking the aerated drinks like what are available in market, which contain heavy amount of sugars. So instead of that, we should prefer drinking coconut water or plain water to avoid the excess of sugar intake, which after digestion and assimilation converts into triglycerides and fats. So coming to next risk factor, which is high blood pressure, which is also called as hypertension. So first of all, we should confirm a diagnosis of hypertension by taking 2 to 3 readings, averaging them, and which is felt essential by a treating doctor. Then once hypertension is diagnosed, it's our duty to make the blood pressure lower and make it within the target range prescribed by the guidelines. So, and this is a lifetime process. So two mistakes what people do while taking treatment for hypertension is, first thing, they think that hypertension is going to cause symptoms at present. So they tell that my BP is high but I am not feeling it. So it is not like that. Even if your blood pressure is 180 or 200, you may not feel that it is high. That's why we have sphygmomanometer, that is blood pressure monitoring machines. So why this all things we are doing is to prevent the damage to the blood vessels and future heart attacks. So the blood pressure should be monitored by a professional doctor and should be treated according to the guidelines. So for what is duty of the patient is to go to the doctor and take a proper treatment. After starting treatment, doctor will ask the patient to follow up depending on the blood pressure levels. It may be 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or maybe 3 months. So as the blood pressure gets controlled, we usually ask the patient to come after 2 to 3 months and just check the blood pressure reading to make sure that it is within normal range. Third thing, what essential is, we also know what to monitor while giving these drugs, and whether these drugs are causing any problem to the patient. So all these things we monitor during the regular follow-up of the patient. So hypertension is a complex topic and it needs to be addressed properly both by the patient as well as the doctor. So coming to the basics of diet and exercise. So why we are focusing on diet and exercise? So diet is the key to health. So what we eat gets assimilated into body, and then it gives us either the positive or negative effects on our systems. So we should avoid eating too much of salt, too much of sugars, and too much of the processed foods. So what we should eat is whole grains, then most of the things like salads, then sprouted grains. And while doing diet and exercise, we must make sure that this is not for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year or 2 years. It is a change in our lifestyle. So whatever changes we make in our diet and whatever exercise we stick to should be long term, that is for our lifetime. So coming to exercise, so many people think that walking for 30 minutes is a exercise. So it may not be an exercise for youth. So what we advise is physical exercise which involves strain, which should be, so exercise cuts down the bad cholesterol and helps you to boost up the good cholesterol. So your protecting ability against the heart attack or stroke is increased after you exercise regularly and for long durations. So regular physical activity is the key to health. So in all these risk factors and in many conferences, now inactivity, that is just a person is eating and sitting in a stool and doing his regular work, that is IT professionals have a very high risk of heart attack compared to other individuals. So physical inactivity is now considered equivalent to diabetes or hypertension if we consider a risk to heart attack. So this regular activity, that is exercise, is very essential and should be part of our daily lifestyle. Then coming to mental stress and lack of sleep. So these two factors are also emerging as important risk factor for heart attacks. So people doing continuous night shifts, who are not getting adequate sleep, that is at least a person should get 6 to 8 hours of sound sleep during night. If a lack of sleep, that is most of the time a person is not getting sleep, then he is prone to get next heart attack or stroke. One more risk factor which I like to discuss is the family history of coronary artery disease. So we many times hear that his father had a heart attack at age of 45 years or father died at the age of 45 years. So all these people, what they should remember is their next generation is having a very high risk of cardiac event, that is either heart attack or cardiac arrest. So they should consult their cardiologist as early as possible and get themselves evaluated by either treadmill test or echocardiography, ECG, or CT calcium scoring or such investigations to know their risk of heart attack or cardiac arrest. Why this is essential? Because we have seen many patients getting heart attack at similar ages, that is father getting heart attack at 45, his son also got heart attack at 40. So whenever we utter a word heart attack, it by default implies some damage to heart. So it's our duty to prevent future heart attacks in our generations. And most important thing what I want to tell is medications after a heart attack. So when a patient is diagnosed with a heart attack and he gets either a thrombolytic therapy, that is blood thinners, or angiography, angioplasty, or a bypass, he or she must remember that he should take the blood thinner medications and statins throughout the life. So whenever you get a heart attack, you should take your medicines for lifetime. It is not like that to take medicine for 1 month, 2 months and then stop it. It can be hazardous to stop medicines on your own without consulting the doctor. So I request you all to consider this as a personal appeal to continue the medication despite what treatment you have received for the heart attack.